Okay, we have an expression here. It's an equation where we have the equation 2x plus 3bx equals 7. We can see it's an equation. We have an x term here that we don't know, and we also have a b term here. So there are actually two expressions here that are going to are dependent of each other. If we change the value of x, then the value of b will change. If we change the value of b, then x will change. There are three sort of different things we could do with this equation. We could factorize the equation, and factorizing is just the same as trying to express it in a more simple form. We can see that we have an x expression here and an x expression here. So we could actually just take the x outside the bracket. If I took the x outside the bracket, what would I need to put inside the bracket so that if I multiplied the brackets out again, I'd get the same thing? Well, x times 2 would give me back to the 2x I had here in the start. So the first term in my bracket would be 2. Then I can see that I have plus 3bx here, so I will need a plus here as well. What would I need to multiply x by to get back to plus 3bx? Well, the x is taken out the front, and what's left here is 3b. So I would get x times brackets 2 plus 3b equals 7. And that's how I actually factorize that expression. How am I sure that I've done it right? Well, if I multiply out my brackets afterwards, I should get back to what I started with. X times 2, we know that when we're expanding the brackets out, we multiply whatever in front of the brackets by whatever inside the bracket, one step at a time. So x times 2 would give me 2x. Then I multiplied the 2 term by x. Now I have to multiply the plus 3b term times x. Plus 3b times x is plus 3bx. And then my brackets are finished and I have equals 7. That stays the same. So if we look here, if we factorize correctly, we'll always, when we multiply through, get back to our original question, which we do. So factorizing an expression is one of the first things that they will want us to be able to do. To take this long expression here and put in brackets, take common terms out the front, and if we've done it correctly, they might also, what are we doing here? We're factorizing when we take the x outside the front of the bracket, taking any common terms out the front. But when to go backwards, we call it expanding. Expanding the brackets, taking it into its expanded form compared with its factorized form. Well, that's one thing they could ask us to do with this type of equation. Another thing that they could actually ask us to do is to rearrange this equation and express it in terms of x by itself. Well, it actually helps us quite a lot by doing this factorization step first. If we know that this expression can be rewritten as x times 2 plus 3b brackets equals 7, it's quite easy now to rearrange in terms of x, because if we divide both sides of our equation by what's in the brackets, 2 plus 3b equals 7 divided by 2 plus 3b. What are we doing here? Well, we're just wanting to get x by itself, and the easiest way to get x by itself is to divide the whole of what's inside this bracket by the same thing itself. Why do we do that? Well, we know that 3 divided by 3 is 1. 3 plus 1 divided by 3 plus 1 is the same as 4 divided by 4, which is also 1. So as long as we've got the same, exactly the same terms under one another, this actually cancels. 2 plus 3b divided by 2 plus 3b is actually 1. And x times 1 is x. So what we get here is we get that x equals 7 divided by 2 plus 3b. So we now have this equation in terms of just x. And here's our final answer. We don't know what the exact value of x is. We can't solve the equation because we haven't been told what the relationship is between x and b. You can never solve one equation with two unknowns. If we were going to be able to solve x and b, they'd need to give us another equation, which in this question they haven't done. Well, another thing they could actually ask us to do is they could ask us to express this equation in terms of b. That means we want to isolate b equals. So we have to move everything else over to the other side. Well, what we could do here is we could first of all remove the 2x over to the other side because we want to get the b term on the left hand side by itself. We can't do anything with the 3 and the x here surrounding the b until we've moved everything else over. So the first thing I would do with my equation, 2x plus 3bx equals 7, is I would take away 2x on both sides of my equation. Let's make a little bit more space here. I would take away 2x on the left hand side of the equal side, and I would take away 2x on the right hand side of the equal side. Remember, I'm allowed to do whatever I want as long as I do the same thing to both sides. Now I have 2x minus 2x here. Well, that's 2x minus 2x is 0. Anything minus itself is 0. So I've actually effectively got rid of this 2x, put it over to the other side. Notice that the plus 2x on the other side of the equal sign becomes minus 2x. So now I have 3bx equals 7 minus 2x. What can I do now? Well, I want b by itself. I don't want to know what 3bx is. I would like to know what just b is. If I divide this side of the equation by 3 lots of x, I have to divide the other side of my equal sign also by 3 lots of x. Now, why on earth am I doing that? Well, we know that 3 divided by 3 is 1. And we know that x divided by x is also 1. So we get 1 times b times 1. That's the same as just b. So I now have just b on my left-hand side equals 7 minus 2x, all divided by 3x. And that's the simplest form that we can have of that equation. So when you give you an equation here that they want you to do something with, it's very important to listen to read the question thoroughly and see what are they asking me to do. Are they asking me to factorize this equation? If they do ask me to factorize, always do the quick check and expand back out to make sure you get back to this. If they ask you to express this equation in terms of x, it means they want an expression where you have x equals and everything else is on the other side of the equal sign. Or they can want you to express in terms of b, in which case you only have a final equation with b equals and everything else is on the other side of the equal sign. So this is some different ways you can simplify, factorize, or express different equations in different ways.